Um, so the next question I have, and this is for Lynn, how can I get my family to eat more vegetables? I have a family of picky eaters. How can I encourage everyone to eat more healthily?
Yeah, so I've got picky eaters myself, so I am personally familiar with this. I think there's several things that you can do. And I think the first thing is, modeling behavior. So if you as a parent don't eat vegetables, it's really difficult for you to then like insist that your child eat them. So I think having vegetables available on the table, you eating them, and having this like, presenting them to the child, maybe putting a serving, a piece on their plate is really the way to start. And the third thing is that getting kids involved in growing or helping prepare vegetables increases sort of their investment in them, so they're more likely to try them. So even if you only have like a little balcony or a little patio, you could get a small container and some dirt and plant things like, radishes or carrots or like leaf lettuce. They grow pretty quickly. And so, you're not waiting for months for your vegetables to appear. Is a great way. And you can involve your children in planting them, caring for them, and then harvesting. I think is also a great way. And then, the other thing is, you can hide a lot of vegetables in various foods. So if you think about using, carrots and celery as like a base for a lot of foods, you can kind of hide them in there. Even in soups, my daughter will not eat a vegetable in soup. Like it's just like noodles and meat is what she wants. But if you take the broth where maybe you've cooked the carrots and the celery and the onions and you use an immersion blender or you put it in the blender and just puree it, so now it's just part of the broth, it's
Mhm.
a way to hide them in there so they don't know they're there. So there's a little trick for you.
Smart. We have just grown our first vegetable garden this year, and I can attest that it makes the kids extremely excited, and they do love harvesting their vegetables and eating them each day. And um, I'd say for Greg and I, we do tend to tell our kids like, okay, you have to take a few bites of everything. Like, I know you don't love these vegetables. We don't make them eat everything. We try to put on their plate what we think is manageable, but if what we
Yeah.
find out is like they still don't want to eat it, we're like, okay, you have to eat like 3 bites. And I guess we're just mean like that. I don't know. All right. Next question, also for you, Lynn. Eating well isn't so hard if you can afford fresh produce and can get to the grocery store every 2 or 3 days. How do I find affordable fresh veggies? And how can I help them stay fresh all week?
Yeah. So there's several things that you can do. So first, let's start with, making a plan. Okay, so that okay, this week I'm going to eat these vegetables because I don't know about you, but when I go to the store, they all sound so good. I may buy more than I'm really realistically going to eat, and that just sort of sets you up for having things go bad. So first of all, it's just like making that plan. Second thing is buying what's in season. We live in a country where you can buy asparagus in December, but it's not in season anymore. It's really going to be its cheapest in spring when it's actually in season locally. The farther they have to ship it to you, the more expensive it's going to be. So, starting to learn about what's in season at different times of year and really focusing on those things. Third thing is going to be how to store your vegetables properly. I know it's like if I just throw it in the fridge, it's going to be fine. And yes, we do want to refrigerate most vegetables, unless it's something you want to ripen. Like if you have tomatoes that aren't ripe or stone fruits, you can leave those out on the counter to ripen. But generally speaking, you want to store produce in airtight bags. So you could use like, Ziploc type bags, or you could use like the silicone bags, but something that's airtight. The exception to this rule is mushrooms. Okay, interestingly enough, you want to store mushrooms in a brown paper bag so that the paper bag kind of absorbs some of that moisture, but also allow oxygen to come into the mushrooms. It's kind of something I didn't know about until recently. As far as leafy greens, a real big tip I would give is if they're like if they're not the bagged salad type things, if they're actual like leaf lettuce or herbs or spinach, you want to take off any like twisty ties or bands that might be on them when you buy them, and then wrap them up in some paper toweling before you put them in a Ziploc bag, because it will help absorb some of that moisture so that they're not as wet. They won't go bad as quickly. So learning how to store them properly, and then kind of like thinking about things that store longer and things you have to eat more quickly. So for example, my favorite like last forever vegetables are like carrots, cabbage, winter squash in the wintertime, cauliflower. They tend to last longer. So if you buy them and plan to eat them sort of later in the period between when you go shopping, they're going to last in there a little longer. And then lastly, I certainly recommend using frozen things as well. Frozen vegetables and fruits are perfectly fine. They're usually frozen quickly after picking, so they're generally fresh. And I use a lot of frozen fruit, even in the summertime. I buy frozen strawberries because fresh ones go bad so quickly. If I use the frozen ones, and they're just going to be in there whenever I need them. And then lastly, just knowing how to buy produce cheaply. I mean, looking for, in your area, is there a store that maybe is less expensive? A farmer's market. You can actually get produce home delivered from companies like Hungry Harvest, which basically gives you a box of produce each week. You have to be willing to be adventuresome because you might get stuff that you're not used to. But those are sort of little tricks onto how to really buy affordable produce and make it last as long as possible.
And
I like the mention that sorry, I was just going to throw out there the mention of frozen fruits and vegetables. And, that was something that helped my family a lot was, we buy a lot of produce. We buy a lot of fresh fruits, bananas, apples, things that will last a while. And we try to buy fresh vegetables as much as we can, cucumbers and carrots. But we've really found that having a good stock of frozen fruits and vegetables that are easy to pull out, and a bag of mixed frozen vegetables that you can drop in a pot and just steam up, and frozen fruits you can throw into a smoothie, just make it so much easier, and they last so long in the freezer. And I'm glad you confirmed this, Lynn, because this is my understanding, is that the nutritional value really isn't that much different being frozen like that.
Yeah, no, it's very, very similar to fresh.
It's funny that you say that, Lynn, though, that fresh strawberries go bad so quickly. I would say not in our house. Our kids, we cannot. We lived in California where fresh strawberries were so inexpensive, and you could get like 2 pounds for $5. Where here it's like 1 pound for like 4. And so
Yeah.
we kind of are like, please stop eating the strawberries. You're gonna like eat us out of house and home. And I also wanted to say real quick how you might be able to find, Lynn was talking about getting those fresh boxes of produce from, local farmers. You could always Google like community supported agriculture near me, because that's usually what that's called, community supported agriculture. That's kind of the generic term. And there might be like different farms and different companies in different parts of I know in Sacramento, it was Farm Fresh to You. So if you Google that term, you should be able to find something like that in your area. Okay, next question again for Lynn. Where can I find nutritious recipes that are relatively quick and inexpensive?
It honestly, for most recipes, it's the prep time that's the worst. And so I like to, if I'm working on a certain day, if you chop up your vegetables, like maybe in the morning, if you've got an extra 10 minutes, or something like that, do it ahead of time, because that is the big key. So first, I just want to say that there's different ways of thinking about what is healthy eating. And for me, I'm a big proponent of a balanced diet, of having protein, fruits and vegetables, some whole grains, sort of balancing it out. I'm not a proponent of like eliminating food groups, because I think that then you're cutting back on possible nutrients. But again, this could look different for different people. One of my favorite like go-to websites is called Eating Well. It is what used to be called Eating Light Magazine, which I always loved, is now sort of part of Eating Well. And so you can go on there and find all kinds of recipes, some quick and easy, some a little more involved. But the other thing that you can do is just Google, like I did this because I was like, how do I find these recipes? I just Googled healthy and quick recipes. Now you have to kind of look through them to see if they're fitting like what your dietary needs are going to be. But that's a great way. And then my third tip is anything called a diabetic recipe is innately going to be healthy. There is no quote diabetic diet. A diabetic diet is just a healthy, balanced diet, usually lower in sodium with healthy fats. And so, sort of Googling for like diabetic recipes, often you're going to find things that are going to be on the healthier side. And then one other thing is that if you've got like a certain thing you want to cook, like, I don't know, you've got that cabbage in the refrigerator and you're like, what do I do with this cabbage? Just Google like cabbage recipes. And it's a great way it's just to Google by like what ingredient you have to find different options for that. I do that all the time.
And I think for me, one thing that was helpful when I did that 4 week weight loss program was they did give me a list. And it's exactly like Lynn said, it was all very normal food. It wasn't like, okay, now you have to buy like this fake butter or something. It was all like really just normal stuff. And I really appreciated that. And it really did focus on with each meal, you want to eat a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of healthy carbs, a certain amount of healthy fat, and then a big serving of vegetables. And it helped me think about that with each meal. Like, do I have some protein? Do I have a healthy carb? Do I have some vegetables? Do I have a healthy fat? And if each meal had that, it could look differently. For me, one thing that I do to start my day, like for me, a healthy breakfast that I always enjoy and that I eat almost every day is like a piece of whole grain toast, just plain scrambled eggs, sometimes with salsa and turkey bacon. And sometimes instead of the turkey bacon, I'll either have the turkey bacon or the eggs. So I'll have like a piece of whole grain toast, and turkey bacon or eggs, with salsa. And then often I'll have like avocado on the toast. And so that kind of it doesn't hit the vegetables super well, but the avocado is the healthy fat. The toast is the healthy, as long as you do like a whole grain type thing, is the healthy grain. And then either a small serving of scrambled eggs, or some turkey bacon, which I feel like tastes just as good, if not better than pork bacon. And like I have that almost every day, and I've had that almost every day for a year, and it still doesn't get old for me because to me it tastes fine. I don't expect to sit down to like some giant fancy breakfast every day. Like I don't really like that's not part of our lifestyle at this point. And obviously sometimes, I'll switch it up, but I think like kind of finding something that works for you, whether it's okay, for lunch or for dinner, like, you have chicken so many days a week, you have pork so many days a week. Sometimes you have red potatoes, sometimes you have sweet potatoes, sometimes you have asparagus, sometimes you have some other like salad vegetable that you like. So, I mean, I think just kind of thinking about each meal, like, do you have that healthy fat? Do you have that healthy carb? Do you have that vegetable? And, I don't know. That works for me. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it, Stacy. Actually, I really like that. Yeah, what I was going to say is that when you think about proteins, especially at dinner time, because you have like chicken so many days and pork so many days, and you kind of get like tired of it. Is to think about having beans at least once a week. They're very economical, whether you buy them in the dry state. And if you do buy dry beans, just look up online. You don't have to soak them overnight. You can start preparing them the day of. That's kind of an old wives' tale. But you can look up how to do a quick soak on beans, or buy the canned ones and just rinse them off. It's just a great way to have something like that's less expensive, and just to kind of make things a little more interesting in your weekly meal planning.
Excellent. So I think it really is. It's just about like finding the proteins that work for your family. Obviously, you want like lean, healthier proteins or beans, finding the veggies that work for your family, and just making sure that you incorporate all of those sort of groups into each of your meals.
And as somebody who does incorporate beans into my diet, whether it be like refried black beans or black whole beans or white kidney beans, I will say, I don't feel as heavy after eating like a bean wrap or a bean salad, something like that, where sometimes you just feel heavier after eating a steak salad or even a chicken salad. The beans, I don't feel as heavy.
And we do
Another
want
one
to,
that I really like too is that uh, we have a pretty good blender that I absolutely love. We have a Vitamix, so it's one of the high end ones, and we do smoothies in it every single day. But I also have used it to make protein bites. So getting a lot of seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds, and pumpkin seeds, and I'll throw them in there and grind them down essentially to a powder and roll that up with some dates and some peanut butter, some honey, and it's just so many good calories and protein packed into these little bites. Very, very easy, very convenient. They stay good for a long time. Great way to get some protein in.
excellent.